Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and all the other good things. It's what is it? It's the 7th of October, and it's This Week in WordPress, episode number 310. If you've tuned in to watch us drone on about the WordPress drama, then you may as well stop now, because we're going to try and avoid it, if that's all right with you. I think there's enough loudness elsewhere. And so we're going to try and actually focus on some WordPressy stuff, which we'll drop into it. I don't think there's any avoiding it entirely, but the plan isn't to go like thermonuclear on that topic. Go to Twitter, just type in the hashtag WordPress, and you can enjoy it all there. It's all happening live in real time with lots of people getting irate and angry. But over here, we're going to maintain the happiness that can come from being part of an open source software community. We're just going to join forces, sing Kumbaya, and be very, very happy.
More kittens and puppies, please.
So many more kittens and puppies. Yeah, I've still got that video, actually. I might be able to muster that up in a few moments. As always,
I like monkeys. I think we need monkeys.
I don't have monkeys on tap, I'm afraid. I've only got the cats, dogs, and
next week.
Next week, it's
Marc
going to be all about the
circus.
monkeys. Yeah. As always, if it was just me on this show, it'd be dreadfully boring, because I wouldn't have anywhere near enough stuff to say, and I certainly wouldn't have the intelligence to say it well. So I always bring in the intelligence. The intelligence this week comes in the form of 3 other people. First of all, over there, on my screen at least anyway, Michelle Frechette, co-host of the episodes which she's on. Nice to have you with us, Michelle. How's life?
Good to be here. Life is good. I'm a little tired because we
tell
had
me why.
We had a WordCamp this weekend. So WordCamp Rochester happened on Saturday.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been an organizer for a WordCamp, you know that Monday is difficult.
Oh, I'm pleased that the event is now behind you, at least. And can I just ask you to sum it up in a shorter space of time as you feel comfortable with? Was it an enjoyable experience? Did you manage to talk about WordPress and not just the politics around WordPress?
We had 16 amazing speakers who gave some really awesome talks. We had a workshop. It was phenomenal. And the drama talk was absolutely very limited. Most of the attendees weren't even aware of what was going on because they're business as usual. So it's mostly the insiders that were, having some private conversations here and there. But for the most part, it was just business as usual, and it was a phenomenal event.
Gosh, that's really interesting, because even people attending an event, they're not inside that little bubble. That's fascinating. I watched a tech podcast the other day which tried to tackle the story, and it was so replete with errors. And I just thought, do you know what? That's interesting that it's full of errors, because it's not that important for them to do the fact checking. It's just, it's not that big of a story, but of course to us it's a big thing. Anyway, there she is, Michelle Frechette. She is the Director of Community Engagement for Stellar WP at Liquid Web. In addition to her work at Stellar WP, Michelle is, here we go, the podcast barista at WP Coffee Talk, co-founder of easy for me to say, underrepresentedintech.com, creator of WPspeakers.com, and also WPcareerpages.com. She's the executive director at poststatus.com, co-host of the WP Motivate podcast, co-host also Audacity Marketing podcast and WP Constellations podcast. She's an author, a frequent organizer, and speaker, as we heard, an organizer of WordPress events, and is living outside of Rochester, New York, where she likes to take nature photographs.
I do.
And one final URL, if you want to just check out the whole gamut of things on offer from Michelle, head to meetmichelle.online. Thank you so much for joining us once more. I really appreciate it.
Good to be here. Thank you.
And we're also joined by Courtney Robertson. There's Courtney. How are you doing, Courtney?
I am doing well today. I'm enjoying my coffee and getting started for the week.
Yeah,
I had a lovely time escaping to state parks and such over the weekend.
Okay, trying to get into nature and stop.
Well, it's easy when you go where there's no mobile reception.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Cannot be bothered there.
Yeah, perfect. Courtney Robertson is an accomplished open source developer advocate at GoDaddy, a dedicated WordPress training team, faculty member, co-founding board member of the WP Community Collective, and she engages with audiences with her relatable insights on getting involved and supporting contributors in the open source community. She's a professional educator, merging her teaching expertise with her passion for technology, both on and off the stage. And in the WordPress community, Courtney is one of 2 or 3 people that I go to every week. Well, I don't directly go to her. I just consume all of the bits and pieces that she posts everywhere. And sadly, took a bit of a weekend off this weekend. And so my feed
That's okay. I took a bit of a weekend off too.
But it was fascinating to me, actually, on that. You know what's been happening in the WordPress space. It was interesting that my normal routes of finding what's going on in the WordPress space came up very dry this week. I would say there was about a quarter the amount of content there normally is being published in RSS feeds. And I reached out to a few people and said, what's going on? And they basically said, it's just everything is getting drowned in all the noise. So, yeah. Well, anyway, thank you so much for all that you do. There was loads more to your biography. But
and I want to... Oh, yes, we don't need all of that. But I want to give a shout out to James Lau, who is in the chat. I know James was one of the speakers for Rochester. I didn't get to go to Rochester, but I had the opportunity to meet James at Montclair last year, had some food together at the after party and such. And I know it was a big deal for James to be speaking at this event. So congrats, James. Looking forward to seeing one in person, hopefully at a camp in our general North Mid-Atlantic vicinity in the near future.
Nice. I'll get to the comments in a moment, but first of all, I feel it's important to introduce our third and final guest. There he is, Marc. Oh, no. Oh, no, I know it. Benzakein.
Yes.
Awesome. I was just going to tell you to say Johnson or something like that.
I got it this time. I had to say the word
Marc.
I had to say the word Novocaine in my head first, and then I got it.
Oh dear.
As long as you spell it correctly in your head, I'm good.
Yeah, well, I fully appreciate you being here. It was very nice to meet up with all three of you in Portland, Oregon, just a few weeks ago, and Marc was there too, hanging out with the person that he works with, Dennis Dornan from Main WP. And on that note, Marc has been involved in the WordPress community for over 14 years. He's currently the marketing manager at Main WP, which is a self-hosted non-SaaS WordPress management dashboard, and will soon be starting his own non-WordPress related podcast. You can learn more about the podcast. Right, I'm going to have to try and parse this. XV SZ or Z, you say, podcast.com. Right. What's XVSZ? What's that?
So it's basically a podcast where we bring in like different generations and discuss issues of the day. So it could be politics, it could be pineapple on pizza, it could be anything. But the idea is that each generation, yeah, I know, Generation X, awesome. But anyway, the idea is that every generation has something to bring to the table. And so my concept is, like, I like to think of myself as like a generation of wisdom and things like that, but maybe not as much energy. And then you've got the younger generations who have a lot of energy and a lot of ideas and creativity. And you bring it in together under the same roof and have like these very respectful conversations where we share our perspectives and learn from each other and grow. That's, I think that generations tend to disqualify or dismiss other generations very easily, and I'd like to actually open up the dialogue a little bit more, kind of like other ancient cultures have done over the years. They've respected the wisdom of the ages, but they've also respected the energy of the youth, and so that's kind of the concept. And I've been working on it for about 2 years, and I'm like, okay, I really got to get this thing going.
Got to do it, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I've just realized I parsed it utterly wrong, didn't I? It's X versus Z.
Correct.
Podcast.
Yes.
Okay. It's not
which will be more obvious on the website than it is in the actual URL. Yeah.
But the URL, if you want to check it out when it finally comes out, is xvszpodcast.com, all one word. And
I have kind of a landing page up right now, but it's nothing. It's a work in progress. So
I don't know. I kind of feel in my own heart, I feel like I'm still 15, but you have to take one look, and sadly. The reality.
All you have to do is talk to your kids, and they'll tell you
that's right, Dad. You're so not cool. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to a few comments. Just before we do that, I'll just tell you how you might comment best. The quickest way to do it is to go to wpbuilds.com/live. So you can see that URL on the screen. wpbuilds.com/live. You've got two options. If you're logged into a Google account, then you can use the chat widget on the right. If you're on desktop, it's below. If you're on a mobile. And feel free, go for it. If you don't want to be logged into Google or you've got an objection to that, that's fine. You can be a non-logged in conversationalist. If you click on the little live chat, which is inside the video, it's top right. I think it says live chat. It's in a little black, what looks like a button. That'll pop out. It'll hover over the right-hand side of the video, so you can use that instead. So send people there if you've got friends, relations, dogs, cats, stick insects, beetles, anything you know that you want to send here. I'd be fascinated to see how a stick insect would cope near a keyboard. That would be an interesting view. But send them there, and hopefully you'll be able to join in the conversation. Quite a few people have done that already. Let's have a little look, see who we've got from where. So we've got Lawrence L. Ladomery joining us from, I'm guessing, Australia. James Lau just got a mention. Was that right? Was it James that you mentioned just now, Courtney?
Yes.
Yeah. So Congratulations for your speaking endeavour. Cameron Jones is joining us. I thought Cameron was going to be on a... Yeah, I won't go into that. He sent me a message. And anyway, sorry, Cameron. I'll be quiet now. Adam is joining us and saying hi. Jose is also saying hola. And who else have we got? Max saying hi. Birgit's joining us saying hi from... Is that the German flag? That's the German.
It is.
Mm-hmm. What else have we got? Oh, of course, Peter Ingersoll, as he does each week, joining us to tell us about the weather. 16 degrees. He says, good rainy morning. I don't know if the two things go well together. There you go. Rainy morning from Connecticut. Easy for you to say. I'm going to say that a lot this week. 16 degrees, 61. Oh, it's a palindromic number. Look at that. 61, 16. I didn't know that one was one. I know 82 and 28 are. With some sun on the way. Thank you so much, Peter. I really do appreciate you dropping in each week. I really do. Oh, yeah, okay. This is about Cameron getting blocked. Who knows if we'll get into that. Atif saying, hello. Marcus, good morning over here. Headphone gang. Yeah, we're all doing the headphones. Good to see you all at the start of the week. Jeff joining us. Gosh, there's so many. Thank you very much. This will be Matt Medeiros, although it's marked as WP Minute. Marc has been involved in WordPress for 40 years, it says. Okay. And
feels like
Cami,
it sometimes.
Yeah, I'll bet. Cami, listening on my way to the gym this morning. Happy to see you all. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. And Patricia is the final one to drop in something there. Just before we hit record, and I'll bring Marcus's one up. Courtney, you were saying about the fact that there's trouble in store in the neck of the woods where Marcus lives. I don't know anything about it, sadly. Do you want to just... Yeah.
So half of my team directly at work is in the Orlando area, Marcus and Adam Warner, that is. And I'm keeping a close eye on the weather, but also if you want to check out WordPressers that are near zones that we know have some major weather patterns or other natural disasters, go from your average news source to the WP World site, and you can zoom in and see what pressers you may know that might be impacted by that. So if you scroll down just a little bit, Nathan, like halfway, there you go. There's a map, and you could start the zoom in towards certain areas. And this works for people around the globe. Now, I am more aware of what my direct coworkers are facing than I am in other parts of the globe. But the path right now looks like it's heading through the middle of Florida, coming in from the Gulf and heading west. So if you want to check in with any of your friends and loved ones in the area, this might help you find some of those folks. Thank you, Marcus, for making the WP World.
Yeah, indeed. And stay safe, everybody. You know, I have no real intuition as to what that means, not having been in a hurricane, but, you know, my thoughts are with you all. I hope you manage to stay safe.
Yep. Nathan, on each of those, if someone clicks on the little W flag icon that's there, you'll see the folks that are in that area. It does not give down to street address, just city level.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. What a good idea. So you can check in with the WordPress community over at the WP.world. So the title of the site is the WP World, but the WP.world if you wanted to do that. Okay, do we have any more comments? Just David joining us as well from Phoenix,
hey, Dave.
Arizona. So, okay. Right, in which case we'll get stuck into the WordPressy stuff. Before we do that, just a few little bits of self-promotional nonsense. I hope that's all right with you lot. This is us, wpbuilds.com. We are sponsored by, as you can see at the moment, it's GoDaddy Pro, Bluehost, Omnisend, and Memberful. Thank you so much for their ongoing support. It keeps the lights on over here. Once more, GoDaddy Pro, Bluehost, Omnisend, and Memberful. If you end up on any of their properties and you genuinely did come from us, don't feel shy. Mention that was the case, and it, that's a nice quid pro quo. We have a Black Friday page. It's very spartan at the moment. There's only, a handful of deals, but the way this goes is probably over the next week or two, companies will be contacting me and getting their deals put up there. But it's at wpbuilds.com/black. That's wpbuilds.com/black. I'll pop that on the page. There it is. Bookmark that. And then when your WordPressy stuff comes over the next, your WordPressy kind of Black Friday stuff comes around, you'll be able to search and filter for it. You click that little button. You can do it by category, by price, that kind of thing as well. And you can see at the moment, we've got one person that sponsored us. That's Marc Westguard. Marc Westguard has sponsored this page. And if you want to do the same and get yourself on this page, click this little Get Started button and you can find out more. wpbuilds.com/black. Right, okay. Have we got anything else to say on a sort of self-promotional note? Yes, we do. One more thing. A couple of weeks ago, I started a new show with Courtney, all about community. And these new shows that I'm doing are going to be kind of like once every quarter. And each quarter, Courtney's going to be joining me, and we're going to sum up the WordPress community over the last 3 months. Gosh, Courtney, we're going to have a fair amount to say during that one. But thankfully, the episode that you did was more or less exactly 3 months from the next one. So hopefully things will calm down a little bit.
Dear. Yeah. Well, if folks want to find out how I'm following all of this news, and keeping a pulse on the community, that's the episode I'm directing everyone to go find. How do I do this?
Courtney and I talked through how Courtney actually manages to keep on top of all the things going on. But I've started another show with Tim Nash, and we're going to do the same sort of flavor, only his is from a security position. And we're going to call it Feeling Insecure with Tim Nash. And so that was episode 392 of the WP Builds podcast. Like I say, it's going to be every quarter, roughly. And he's going to focus in on some things that have been happening in the security space in WordPress, and then a few little tips and tricks to help you keep your site in tip-top shape. Okay, that definitely is all the promotional stuff. So let's get stuck into WordPressy stuff, actual WordPressy stuff, not the stuff going on around WordPress. So this is way more than I remembered. So WordPress 6.7 beta 1 has come out. If you're inexperienced, or not, that's not the right word. If you're not really that new, if you're not really that long-standing in the WordPress community, you might not realize that the software goes through these like beta cycles where it's put out for testing. And the more people that test it, the more likely it is that the version that ships and goes into the 43% of the internet will have less bugs in it. And so here we are, step 1. Normally there's 3 beta cycles, and this is the first of those. And this article, which you can find written by David Baumwold, came out on the 1st of October. So it's pretty new, and it indicates some of the bits and pieces in beta 1. If you do want to test, it's dead easy. It's genuinely drop dead easy these days, and the instructions of how to do it are just there. I won't bore you with that, but you can figure that out. I would recommend this last option, this playground option, if you just want the super simple version of that. Okay, so what's new? And the answer is a boatload. So we've got the new 2025 theme, and it says some stuff here which I never I don't really know how to parse it, but it says here we are, I'll just read it. Inspired by glimpses of natural beauty and ancestry heritage, it invokes ideas of impermanence, the passage of time, and continuous evolution mirroring life's journey. Okay. But you can check out the new theme if you download that and see what you make of it. You've also got the option to zoom. So this is new stuff. This is all new things that are going to be dropping in. So you can zoom out to compose with patterns. And this idea is you've got this little icon, you click it, and rather than being right inside the full editor, everything just zooms right out so that you can see everything. Oh, gosh, imagine sort of like in a Google Doc, just clicking the minus button and taking the size of the page down. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, so that if you've got a complicated big pattern, you could see everything that's going on. It's really cool. You've got to try it to see, and it just does exactly what it says. You get one eyeball on the whole thing. You can see all of it in one shot without the detail. Media improvements, you'll now be able to upload directly from your iPhone with the HEIC image format. It's not going to keep that because most web browsers won't display it, or at least some won't display it. It's going to turn it into a JPEG. That's all happening. Expanded block supports. So basically, some blocks are going to have an extended range of options. The preview options API, this one's a little bit above my pay grade, but it says here, the latest WordPress release enhances the preview options in the block editor, empowering developers to customize content views. A new API allows plugin and themes to add custom items to preview, download, drop-down menu, enabling users to see content in different formats or environments. And seemingly quite a few theme developers are exceedingly happy about this, and I'm sure they could explain more why. Data views, which is the ability to add different context to your lists, if you like, of posts and pages and things like that in WordPress. That shipped in 6.5, and there's going to be more features added into that. Block bindings, so that you can connect one thing to another thing. That's going to be... you're going to be able to manage it directly. So it says 6.7 will add polish to and open most underlying APIs, improving the overall user experience, and add a UI, which allow you to connect attributes with custom fields to their binding sources. Dead cool, really interesting. A simplified and smarter query loop block, edit and control font size presets, view meta boxes in the I'm framed post editor. So you can sort of decouple the meta boxes from the content editor, which means that you can sort of like push it out the way, if you like, making it bigger, the area that you're editing the content in, really big. And I think that's it. I mean, like, that's it. That's
it.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, that's it.
That's it.
So basically, there's a boatload in there. Okay, and just reset, right? Cast your mind back 2.5 weeks ago. I think we all lost sight of this, the software. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to do the drama, have that fun on Twitter or whatever. I'm back to being about the project. And there it is. There's the project in a nutshell. A ton of nice features. Yeah.
Can I confess something here? I firmly believe in testing. This is not the test. This is not a confession at that point. So the next test window for beta 2 we have going on at midnight UTC into Tuesday. So for me, that is 8 p.m. Eastern time. I will be present for that one. But the confession comes that I caused the rebuild because I showed up to the release party and Nathan at the top. So the rebuild means that something happened before we shipped. There is the party schedule. You can see what time. This is all taking place in core inside of a Slack chat. The general policy is once the release starts, you could like tell the world the release is beginning, but you don't say it's out or anything until it's done. So could take an hour, could take a little longer. The betas tend to be a little slower during the release party than others, especially if you're like me and you find a thing that causes the rebuild before we ship. So what I found is that on the, this is why I show up to these things. Nathan, do you still have the post up that had the info about? If you scroll down to the part where it has the testing playground right there. Oh, we haven't by it.
That one there.
Yeah, that one. So this link, I helped Adam Zielinski customize a blueprint that comes with what's called theme unit test data, which means that if you're going to test the query block, you probably want some content. You don't want to have to make 6 posts to test the query block. So it's already included along with other dev kind of plugins and ways to quickly log your tickets and issues in the right places. It's great. So that picked up the new theme. But whenever I was testing on upgrading an existing site with Andy Fragan, in that case, it did not find that 2025 was bundled in when you're doing an update. Like I had an existing site and I was upgrading it. And because 2025 is the big new theme of the year, which I'm super excited about, it's pretty important that we get folks in there and testing. So I went to run the update and said, team, should I be seeing this in here? So even if you're not a really skilled developer, it's worth testing these things. And anyone that works for a plugin or a theme company or even hosts absolutely should get in here and test, because you find weird edge case things like, does the zip file upload?
Thank you.
We need to make sure we test these things. And so please, if you can come to the release parties, do. And if you cannot, slot some time that on each release You test if you are building your own plugins or what have you against it. And the more eyes that we have on things, the more stable we are on release day.
I'll just post these back on the screen for the benefit of people's calendars. So obviously the first one, the beta one, happened already. That was last Tuesday, but you can see the cadence. It's every Tuesday from now on. Tuesday the 8th is number 2. Tuesday the 15th, number 3. RC stands for release candidate, and it just carries on. 22nd, 29th, all Tuesdays. Tuesday, November the 5th, release candidate 3. And the intention is to ship on Tuesday the 12th. So you can sort of see how that whole project works. You have sort of like this 8-week cadence, or it's maybe a little bit more than that, but we're right at the top of that, so you've got a chance to get your voice in there. Okay, so there was loads in there. I'm just going to hand it over. Let me just reduce the size of that. Hand it over to either Marc or Michelle if they've got anything they wanted to add, some things in there that they like, or not. If not, we'll move on.
I just kind of feel like WordPress may be bringing sexy back, which is kind of cool. So
which bit are you?
Well, I think the new theme actually sounds pretty cool, and actually I know that this I don't know, I kind of like the iframe thing a little bit. I think that's kind of cool too. Just to kind of pull that out and separate. Oh yeah, and the zooming, the ability to zoom in, I really like that. So.
Yeah,
I don't know. It just seems like it's I wonder about how fast all of that will be. But I have been inspired by Courtney's last 5-minute talk about actually testing the beta, which I have always kind of skipped. But I think I may actually, after this, I may actually load it up on a test site and run some tests on it and see all the descriptions and how cool it is, and maybe maybe people start thinking that WordPress is a little less boring again.
Yeah, and also just concentrate on the stuff, right? The actual bit of software that we're talking about. Sorry, Courtney, I cut you off. Oh, one thing, Marc.
If you go
sorry, Courtney, just one second. Marc, this may not bother you at all, but on this clipped version where we got my screen shared and there's the 4 of us on the right, we can only see from your nose upwards. I don't know if you can.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh. I don't know if you want to twist the camera down or
well, I can hop up and lower the camera a bit. Yeah. Sit up straight.
Okay, sorry.
Yes,
that was
I know.
Yeah.
No, thanks for pointing that out, because my nose is my least attractive feature. So, that's the last thing you need to see.
There you go. Yeah, that's today's title.
I'm just grabbing the link. Then on the test team site, there's directions for what would be helpful from .org's perspective that you test, but also please, my own acknowledgement is extend that testing into also trying it against any of the things that you maintain. And I could speak more to that. Another time.
Okay, so there's a post here that Courtney just pasted in. I'll try to get it in the show notes. It's called Help Test WordPress 6.7. So speaking to what you were just saying, there is the laundry list of ways to go and the things that they want. So that was Ankit Gupta on 1st of October 2024.
And Courtney, I will probably lose this link, so I'll hit you up afterwards to give it to me again.
Nathan put it show notes too.
I'll put it in the show notes.
I'm so sorry to talk.
Yeah. Anyway, so there we go. Michelle, anything you want to add before we move on?
I love the poetic language around 2025. I think it sounds like it's going to be really beautiful.
This bit here, nice. Yeah. I've never been that good with poetry, to be honest. When you were in school and the teacher would be reading out the poem and loads of the kids would be like, "Yeah, I get it. It's really mean." I was always the kid. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. So that's not me denigrating what's been written there, but I struggle to parse that kind of thing. Okay, there you go. So WordPress 6.7 beta 1, hopefully by November. So not that far away now. A few weeks, we'll have a nice shiny new version of WordPress. Let's go back to the live chat, see if there's anything that's come in here. Dennis joining us. Saying stay safe to the Floridians. Is that how you pronounce it? Floridian?
It is.
The people in Florida who obviously got the sort of
you pronounce that better than you pronounce my last name.
Okay. I feel bad now. Colin Devereaux says, I'm guessing he's talking about the release. This is great for us plugin development. Oh, yeah, any testing. To test our plugins against the upcoming releases. Cameron, he says it's time for bed. It's late where he is. Of course, it's probably like 11 at night. Hoping the soothing tones of Nathan Wrigley rocks me to sleep. Good grief. I have no work. Oh Lord, there's no pressure then. Yeah. If Cameron's still here at the end of the episode, we know that it didn't work. And Lawrence, who's also in Australia, says it's time change in Australia, making it a bit hard to watch. Okay, well, I'm sorry about that. We'll keep it probably at the same time, just because it's when
Nathan.
Coming in. Yeah.
One of my friends calls your voice the audio.
Bulldozer?
No, the sleep aid. I can't think of the
like a frying pan to the forehead.
Valium. No, it's like Valium.
You're saying I sound
Valium.
like Valium. I love it. Knocks you out. Oh, that's great.
The sweet dulcet tones.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind. Thank you. Whoever they are, say thank you in a nice, soothing, smooth voice. Elliot saying hi. That's nice. Belated applause for moving on and focusing on the project itself, though without heads in the sand, of course. Yes, Colin, appreciate it. It was a definite decision and not a hard one. It came quite easily. the desire to talk about something else. Patricia says the mentorship program starts today and we'll invite all mentees to test. Okay, so that's another bit of news that I seem to have missed. Sorry, Patricia. So, Patricia, awesome. If you want to drop any more comments in that, like URLs or anything like that, that would be fine. She loves your nose, Marc. So just your nose is perfectly fine.
I appreciate that.
Tim Nash is joining.
Okay, well, I'll cancel that appointment with the plastic surgeon later.
Way cheaper just to stay with what you've got. Tim, we've already mentioned the podcast episode that we did the other day, but I appreciate you joining us. And a shout out to all who contributed to the call for testing post. I worked on it for 6.4 and it is a load of work indeed. Indeed. Yeah, isn't that interesting? We got 3 things around that, just that one thing. So we've obviously got this long post. Then we had this one, the help testing one, and then we also had this one. There's a lot of work goes into this, let alone the actual software, which itself had to be up to that point. Speaking of the software, I was lucky enough to attend WordCamp US in Portland a few weeks ago. And one of the people that I spoke to, because I went there so that I could do podcast episodes for the tavern, the WP Tavern. And one of the people that I spoke to, I was saying earlier about Courtney, giving me all the things to say on this show. If memory serves, Courtney, I think you collided me with Andy Fragan. I think it was you. And
I love connecting people.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It was really, really helpful. Andy, okay, firstly, let's get something out of the way, right? Andy contributes to WordPress in a very, very high level way. Like, he gets the code. He's very expert at that. And so you're kind of thinking he's probably working for an agency. He's fairly high up in the agency. He's been doing this for years. No. What Andy does is Andy saves people's lives, actual lives, because he's a trauma surgeon. And once you've got over that thing and think, wait, hang on, that's a pretty high-powered career. And he said to me, he has literally actually answered support questions whilst in you call it the emergency room, right? So he's ready, he's almost ready to go, but the prep hasn't started for whatever reason. So he's got a few minutes, lying around, and he thinks, well, I'll just whip out the laptop and
he's one of the few people that can take a scalpel to both humans and code.
But he's so graceful with it. I mean, I think he's described it as the only fungible commodity we've got is time. And so he obviously sees that as an important, mechanism. If he's got time, he's going to try and use it. So when your jaw comes off the floor that he's a trauma surgeon and is committing to WordPress core, then you go and listen to this episode. We get into that a little bit because it is interesting. But he was one of the people, and they're mentioned in this podcast episode, who have created a feature in WordPress core that, let's hope, never it needs to be used. And if it is used, you'll probably never, you might not even kind of know. You will know, but it's not like you're going to go rushing out to Andy and saying, oh, thank you so much. But you should. So quite a while ago, WordPress shipped the ability to switch on automatic updates for plugins. So you go in and you click the word, it says, I don't know, enable auto update or something like that in the plugin screen. And it thinks for a moment and then it says, yeah, it's enabled. From that moment on, if the WordPress repository has an update to that, your website will just find it on its cron schedule and it will update itself. But what the heck happens if it goes wrong? you could be in a much worse problem than you were in before. So the idea was, let's build auto rollbacks for automatic updates. Now, you say like, oh, yeah, we'll just roll it back. Yeah, piece of cake. That'll be easy. No. It turns out that was fantastically hard. Not just hard from the point of view of difficult to execute. There were just so many weirdy exceptions like that they had to take care of. And honestly, I'm listening to it thinking, if that was me, that exception, I just ignore that one. It's like 0.001% of the population used that. No. They did it by the book. So go and have a listen to that episode about how they did it. And thank you to people like Andy who just doggedly commit to core and make our lives so much better. You know, if you've got a website that you never want to touch, you just want to set it up and forget it. This kind of feature really does in the future make that kind of thing possible. So brilliant. And I don't know if any of you have got anything to say about that. It's a brilliant feature, but it's the kind of feature that you'll never know about particularly, you know. So there we go. Anybody?
I'm just
glad that
how great of a guy Andy is. I mean, he's like one of the most humble people you'll ever meet, and you'd never know that he's like probably the smartest guy in WordPress. But I've known him for a long time, and I consider him a friend. And we used to hang out in the same Southern California meetups and stuff.
Oh, like nice. That. Oh,
yeah. Just a fantastic guy. I didn't even know he was a trauma surgeon until probably a year after I met him.
Wow. So, yeah. And that was the moment you were on a table underneath the knife, and it was like, wait, hang on, it's Andy.
Actually, it's a little bit like that. If everyone knows John Brown actually was in the hospital a few years ago where he had some sort of a brain thing. I can't remember what it was exactly, but Andy ended up like working on him, and that's when I was like, "Wait, Andy Fragan?" You know. And so I was like, he's so humble and he's so freaking smart. I've been fortunate enough to go to dinner with him once or twice, and just a great guy to talk to. I mean, you could talk to him for hours. So
he's one of the kindest people as well.
He really is so generous. Yeah.
If he's not got burning ears at the moment, then he really should have.
Well, I don't want to give him a big head, but you know. Yeah.
But we will. The thing I want to say about Andy in this case is that I am really glad that it was recorded on the Tavern, especially because I've been watching this thing build momentum. When I worked at the events calendar, a lot of us were using Git Updater, which is a plugin Andy has. And if I was doing, I like to test things before they get out and try and break them before so that other people don't break them later. So when I worked at the events calendar, we were using Git Updater, and Andy's developed a pro version of that now. But what it did for me was the ability to basically toggle between the beta version of the plugin and the stable version, because I had to bounce back and forth between writing technical documentation for the knowledge base and answering support queue and all of those things. Andy has just solved so many things that developers face as challenges. And it was great to hear the backstory of the crew working on this in a recorded place, because Andy only has so much time, and I'd rather him use the time how he wants to. But all of us should know this story, and I don't expect him to tell it to everybody one-on-one. So thank you for recording that.
That was the thing about the episode. We don't really get into the nuts and the bolts of the codeness. It is the story, and the story is really interesting, and it goes back like a decade or more. Where this thing was suggested and it never happened. And then obviously Gutenberg came along and made that whole proposition a whole lot more difficult, and finally have achieved it. And I think he said that in the time it's been in core, they've only had one example where it didn't work, and he was able to solve it at WordCamp Portland. Somebody came up and said, "Oh, this happened." He was like, "Oh, I know why that is. I'll just hang on." Did a quick fix and obliterated that problem. So really interesting, fantastic feature, kind of quality of life thing that you'll probably never know is happening, but it's all baked into core now and means that you can confidently switch on updating your plugins automatically. So here we go. Tim Nash is saying Andy is amazing. Massive shout out for all of the work he's done on the automatic updates. Yeah, that's lovely. Graham Tucker Howdy from Atlanta. Please be careful and consider relocating if you live in Florida. Okay, is that where people go? Do they go to your state? Hi everyone, says Ali. Nice to have you with us. Colin commenting on the feature that we're talking about, the automatic rollbacks. A great feature. However, NerdPress found a bug in the automatic update rollback feature this past week for sites on shared hosting, and will be, you can't see it on the screen, so I'll just keep reading. We'll be documenting and reporting it. Okay, there you go. I bet you Andy will be all over it. And Cami says that she met him in Portland. Yeah, have a listen. It's on the Tavern website now. It's episode number, I think it's 139. Yeah, there it is, 139. Anything else before we move on?
Give it a listen.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, give it a listen. Please do. Yeah. So we are going to sort of stray into the stuff that's been going on in the WordPress space, but we're gonna come at it from a different angle. We're not coming at it so that we can explain all the drama to you so you can get hot under the collar. We're going to offer somebody's perspective from outside of the WordPress community. And this is the Dries Bagtart. I think that's how you pronounce it. I've heard it a variety of different ways, but I'm going to go with Dries Bagtart or Bagtart, something like that. Now, if you don't know Dries is the founder. Courtney, did you manage to find out whether founder singular was correct or not?
I believe so.
I'm going with founder singular. Yeah.
Yes.
Of the Drupal project. Now, Drupal is a CMS in much the same way as WordPress is. It's got a really vibrant community. It's probably nowhere near the size of the WordPress community. But you know what? You go back 20 years and roll the dice. It had everything in it. It could have been Drupal. It could have been WordPress. It just sort of ended up being WordPress for a variety of different reasons. The point being, the Drupal community has many of the same problems that the WordPress community has. And we obviously, over the last few weeks, have encountered a fairly gigantic problem. And so Dries decided, I'm going to put pen to paper, or I'm going to put pixels on a screen to say what they did in the Drupal community, because they saw this problem and took some action early on. Now, I guess one thing that you could say in the mix here is that because the Drupal community is smaller, maybe it's easier to turn that ship around than it is the WordPress community. But Dries encapsulates the problem as maker and taker. So if in the WordPress space, you're thinking about people who contribute and people who don't, just think about it like that. You know, people that contribute, you could generally classify as makers. And people who are in the community but only consume its resources, and I guess you could describe it as profit from it, purely profit from it, you could describe those as takers. And so he goes on and he lays out the story of, you know, how this all happened in the WordPress community. But then if we scroll down, we learn that Drupal has got what's called a credit system in place, so that if you are a maker, you contribute, you earn credits. And if you are a taker, you don't earn credits. And I think that's true, right? It's not like you get credits taken away. I don't think, in air quotes, I'm doing air quotes, I don't think bad behavior consumes your credits. You know, it's not like you've got 20 this week and you did something silly and so you got 10 this week. I think it's you just don't earn them. You don't earn any more. But the point is, here we go. And so it's the Drupal Foundation or the Drupal open source community, whatever the thing is, this is what they've done and this is how they accomplish it. So they say things like benefits like event sponsoring or advertising on Drupal.org are reserved for organizations with a minimum number of credits. The Drupal marketplace, so think, I don't know, WordPress.org or something like that, is only available, only lists makers, ranking them by their contributions. Actually, it's probably not WordPress.org. I imagine it's something different in that case. Organizations that stop contributing gradually drop in ranking and are eventually removed. We encourage end users to require open source contributions from their vendors. Drupal users like Pfizer and State of Georgia only allow makers to apply in the vendor selection process. So you're going to get more clients because some clients literally say, we won't allow you to build our Drupal website unless you are a certified maker. Now, I know what you're going to say to me. I actually don't know what you're going to say to me. You could say anything, frankly, but this is what I anticipate. How do you enforce it and how do you keep it fair? good job. Dries figured that one out as well. Here's what he's got to say. To make the contribution system credit system fair, it benefits from an oversight from an independent, neutral party. In the Drupal ecosystem, the Drupal Association fills this critical role. The Drupal Association operates independently, free from control by a single company within the Drupal ecosystem. Some of the Drupal Association's responsibilities include organizing events, DrupalCons, managing Drupal.org, overseeing the contribution tracking and credit system. And then he makes some recommendations for WordPress. He says what WordPress could do is expand the current governance model to be more distributed, provide clear definition of makers and takers within the ecosystem, implement a fair and objective system for tracking and valuing various types of contributors, and implement a structured system of rewards for makers who meet specific thresholds, priority placement at events, increased visibility on the WordPress.org website, opportunity to exhibit at WordPress events, or access to key services. Now, caveat emptor, I am not advocating any of that. I'm reading it, right? I'm just reading it off the page. It's Dries's idea. So don't come after me with the pitchforks. Just saying, this is what somebody else thinks, and this is somebody who is closer to this than I am. You know, they've got a community and all that. So, right, what do you think? Do you think Dries's idea's got legs, or is this just, you know, blowing hot air from another community which doesn't quite map onto the WordPress community? So go on, over to you. Silence.
Who wants to go first?
No, it's okay. No, so okay. So
I'm trying not to.
Caveat.
I'm aware that I have been.
Sorry,
so you all go, and then I'll follow.
Let me caveat something first, right? You don't need to say anything. If you've got nothing to say, just don't say anything. I'm totally happy. I've just read out Dries's ideas. I know that, you know, there's the potential for this to sort of go off in a different direction. I don't want it to. So I don't want anybody to say something under duress from me. That's the last thing I want. So if you want to just move on from this article, we totally can. But I'm just, there it is.
The one thing I do want to say is that I don't, and I mentioned this last week, and I committed to doing a webinar, which I am working on right now, actually, is that I don't think enough people understand how to build their WordPress.org profiles to actually comment or, you know, commit their hours to different make teams. And I think that setting up your WordPress profile is an important thing if you are going to be a contributor to the community. And so I want to help people be able to do that. It's not enough to just have a login so that you can, you know, favorite plugins and things like that. I think if you really want to be a robust contributor to our community, having more information in there, like maybe even just your name as opposed to some, you know, strange handle or something, but also being able to say which make teams you are working on, how many hours a week you're doing that, so that the information that's being transmitted over to Fiverr the Future and things like that would also be more accurate. And so that's one of the things that I'm committed to helping people do.
Okay, interesting. So there's some sort of relationship between what you put in and some visible thing that you get out. It might be a badge or something like that. Okay, that's interesting. So it is a bit like this sort of credit system. Actually, thinking about it, the bits that I read kind of refer. It's definitely companies. It's not really mentioning individuals in Dries's article, is it? So that is a bit
right. But individuals are part of the companies, right? So
yeah.
So like for Stellar WP, my hours as an individual person count towards the company, right? So that's, and I want other people to understand how to make that work into, and it's an honor system. So I could say I'm putting 40 hours in there and nobody's going to say, is she? Right? I mean, I didn't do that. I put my 4 hours a week in, that kind of thing. But it's an honor system. And so we ask people to be honest with their contributions. And maybe this week I did 2 hours, and maybe last week I did 10 because of a WordCamp. What is your average number of hours that you're contributing to the community on a weekly basis? And that's the information that we really want to know.
Yeah, one of the things that Dries mentioned, and I might be making this up, right, because I read it a little while ago and then quickly reread it today. I have a feeling that these people are in some way separated from the community, and there's a panel of 4 of them which make decisions, and they have to be like, there has to be a quorum to make the decisions, and no one person gets to override the decisions. So there's got to be some general consensus. Was it 4 or 12?
You mean it was documented?
Yeah.
The fact that it's documented, that so that's what I've been asking Matt about whenever I speak to these things. And it came up, even in my question to Matt right after the address at US is, can we document what the procedures are? Because otherwise it feels like we have moving targets, and that the rules can change. And that's a challenge then, because getting the buy-in that organizations need for funding, contributing, when the rules feel like they can flex and change, it's harder then to make the case, because it's at the whim of perhaps information we don't all know about, and then it gets all these big feelings. And in Drupal, I know that it was a challenge when they implemented this. And in fact, Roger at Kinsta, thank you, Roger, for doing this. When Dries made the post on LinkedIn to share his link, Roger tagged me in, and it opened a conversation a bit between Dries and I shared, here is what we're doing in the Contributor Dashboards initiative. And contributor dashboards, I shared the link. We don't have to show it on the screen again right now.
I have it. No, I'll pop it up.
We don't really. So from there, you can track off to the various teams that we have so far. Consider this an MVP. Some of it is very manual. We are automating, though, gathering the data that can be gathered. So for instance, it's hooked up to GitHub right now. We have the opportunity to hook up Slack to it, pending budget. But additionally, there are some other areas. I'm going to talk with Otto about getting track data piped into the source of some of the dashboards. It is just solely activity points. It is not necessarily an hourly pledge, but the activity points should help verify the hourly pledge. And if someone is doing knowledge work, that work that cannot be automatically tracked or attributed, then I think Drupal's crediting system certainly comes into play. And I just want to say, community, I am super glad that you're looking at like how do other projects solve some of the same things? Because we are a very large bubble, but we stay in our bubble sometimes. And learning how others have addressed this, wins and losses, pros and cons, understand just because that worked for their community doesn't work for ours necessarily, but it might spark ideas that might improve our experience. And I think is a bit of our way forward. So I'm curious to talk with, if I manage to have a good conversation further with Dries, to understand from that perspective, what were the challenges that he as a founder faced as well, and getting that buy-in. I'll tell you, the idea of makers versus takers is a lot easier for me to go to my executives and say, versus let's explain for someone that is not particularly acquainted with open source, what does the cathedral and the bazaar mean, or free rider, or tending the commons, right? Like, we got to boil it down, because these people are not, their headspace is not solely in open source. They are dealing with other issues in life too. And so they are very smart individuals, but the learning curve to jump into open source and understand then why organizations need to do this funding. We need something distilled down that is still at their language skill level, but is not going to involve a lot of research into these open source philosophies.
The nice thing that I took from it is that that's a really easy thing to parse, right? It's binary. It's you takers and makers, but also it's all carrot.
Right.
Everything's carrot. There's no stick. The stick is kind of the lack of a carrot. So if you don't contribute, you just don't get the extra stuff. Which is fine, in that scenario, not contributing is you're just not getting the stuff, so you can't, appear in the marketplaces and things like that. And that I quite like.
It's also a good time to mention that just the 4 in the dashboards that Courtney that you had up there a second ago aren't the only ways to contribute. Like, all of the make channels are contributions.
Yes.
So just because it's not measurable through GitHub or something like that, like I organized a WordCamp last week, right? And so, but I mean, at this point, I just want people to realize that you don't have to be a developer to contribute to WordPress. I've been doing it for years, and I have written maybe 30 lines of code in my entire life. And so, and that was not something that contributed to WordPress. So, You don't have to be a developer. You can work in community. You can work in marketing. You can work in the photos. You can do testing, all of these other things to be part of the contribution to WordPress.
Thank you. Marc, anything to add?
You know, you just brought up something, and I'm really debating whether or not to cross this because it might get a little bit into the drama. But I sort of wonder if you bring up the carrot part, and I wonder if one of the reasons that the drama exists right now, one of the main reasons, is that I think we all thought that it was all carrot in WordPress too, and then all of a sudden the stick came out, and I. Out of Dries's article, the one thing that I think everybody keeps talking about and bringing up is this idea of an independent oversight committee that kind of decides what counts and what doesn't, but also the having kind of a rule book or a playbook so that we know, because the interesting thing is the closest thing that we have to that is the Five for the Future contribution program, right? And it's interesting the dialogue that's gone on over the last couple of weeks to see how many people didn't really know what counted as contributing and what did and all of that. And so if nothing else, I mean, I always try to look at like what's the positive of all this stuff that's come out. One of the things dialogue right now and actually like people are becoming aware. And once the shock settles down and whatnot, well, we may actually like be able to build something that is, as simple as maker versus taker, as far as understanding goes, but actually has a little bit more meat to it. So we have a better understanding of what all is involved with the contribution process.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because obviously we've got this, what feels like a big inflection point at the moment. And it'd be interesting to see if any of these things do come into play, whether or not as a project we have, we reach out and try to figure out what other projects are doing, because obviously there's value in other people's thoughts as well. Speaking of that, let's just raise a few things. James, I noticed the slightly pregnant pause as well. None of us wanted to get into that, but we did. I think we did it, and we did it well. So congratulations, the three panelists. Brilliant. I think we've sidestepped that. Tammy says it's not an easy problem to solve, but we're going to solve it together by listening to all the needs of contribution. Right. That's been my thing this last couple of weeks, is just get my head down and just keep listening. See what everybody else is saying. Equally, though, she carries on. Equally, though, we need to ensure our essential contributions are covered. We often distract saying not code and leave those areas with people leaving and unsponsored. Thank you very much. And I don't even know what this is. What is that? That's got like, what is that? Can anybody help me out? It's got like a dollar amount attached to the...
Yeah, I think I've seen YouTube doing this in a couple spots, and like on Theo's interview with Matt a week ago, I see that I think there's some financial way of in YouTube chat making sure your comment gets really highlighted by kicking
really?
Some
so
funds.
Has Graham given like...
I haven't learned it all yet, but...
no idea. Graham, if you've just given me some money, I have no words. If that's what... I've no idea whether you just did that. And if you did, I'm eternally grateful. I shall go out and buy a coffee or something, and I will say cheers to you. Thank you very much. Written on top of a purple heart, it says. It's called a super chat, I believe.
Ooh.
Okay, right. From this moment on, Graham, you're a maker. You are a maker. Everybody else, you're just taken. You come into these comments.
Nathan,
you don't give me the cash.
Mark Andrew.
Okay, but Nathan, does that make you a
taker
then?
I have no idea. So apparently,
he'll take coffee.
Honestly, I don't want to get derailed by this because it's not the point. Okay, I'm rich, apparently. Yeah, thank you. I thought the money went to you. Maybe it will. Thank you, Graham. I appreciate it. Whoa, no, wait. What the heck's happening? This isn't real.
Mark Andrew.
And Nomad Skateboarding. Lemon Character.
If you see these on YouTube themselves, then you'll understand the
I see it. Okay,
description.
So that's a description of an emoji. Okay.
Yeah, Mark Andrew.
Okay, so Nomad Skateboarding is just a $5. Okay, let's firstly greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Let's move on. I appreciate that ever so much. I suddenly feel too old to be on YouTube.
Oh, me too, Tammy. Me too.
Thank you.
Same.
That's amazing. Thank you to Nomad Skateboarding and Graham Tucker. Okay, that's great. Right. What's next? Okay, we're going to go to this one. First of all, let me get that chat thing off the board there. I didn't know you could do that. It's fascinating. YouTube is amazing, isn't it?
Don't spend it all in one place, Nathan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to just deal with this one. No fallout, but this was just an interesting one. Obviously, Matt Mullenweg was the sort of the prime mover in the. Well, I suppose he would argue differently, but in terms of the debate and the way it started over the last few days, I'm saying that when he stood on stage at WordCamp Europe, he was the prime mover in letting us all know that there was something that was about to happen. And clearly, quite a few of the automaticians, the people that work for Automatic, obviously in some way let him know that what was going on wasn't in line with what they were thinking. And so Automatic decided that they would have this thing called alignment. I can't remember what did they call it? I think it was just automatic alignment or something like that, where they offered all the staff at Automatic a way to opt out of being an automatician anymore. You know, in other words, if your thought process was disagreeing with Matt's thought process, here's a quick way that you can extricate yourself from this so that it doesn't get messy and it will stay simple for both sides, Automatic and ex-automaticians. And so what they did was, I thought this was kind of interesting. They offered, the alignment offer is what they called it. So you had a few short days. You had to make your decision by Thursday, the 3rd of October. And it was a binary stay, no stay. If you stayed, everything carried on as normal, I'm imagining. But if you decided to go, then you would be offered $30,000 or 6 months' salary, whichever was higher. You would, however, lose access to Automatic almost immediately that same evening, and you would never be eligible to be rehired. So you were making your bed and you were lying it, if you like. 159 people, so 8.4% of the company decided to go for that, which obviously tells you that a lot of people didn't. 91.6% was the remainder. They gave up 100. So Matt's obviously calculated what that would have meant. 126 million dollars. Sorry, that would potentially have been what he would have had to pay out there. 63.5% were male. 53% were in the US. 79% were involved in what's called the ecosystem business, which is, I guess, more WordPress facing, and 18.2 were Cosmos, which is other things like Pocket Cast, Day One, Tumblr, and things like that. And one person who decided to go left 2 days after joining Automatic, and I presume under the offer they still got the $30,000 or 6 months salary. And I guess Matt's added that in because it's it's kind of an interesting statistic. If you were that person, that's a very interesting 2 days work.
It's kind of a big ROI on 2 days worth of work.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd put that out there. I don't know if this is like a normal thing to do. I presume it's like quite abnormal a thing to do. But I guess for Matt, at least anyway, he's got to concentrate on whatever it is that he is going to be in the future. Having the knowledge that your company is the way it is, and that you've given these people the opportunity to remove themselves, and so presumably you've got a company that is aligned with you, and all the employees are aligned with you. It does raise the question, I guess, in my head, is if you lose close to 10%, 8.4% of your workforce overnight, I presume that was just peppered throughout different teams. I don't know how you quite manage the fallout of that, if certain key staff left. And obviously it's not on this screen, but a tweet came out. There's a brouhaha about that as well. But the bottom line is the executive director, Josepha Hayden Chomposi, has also left Automatic as well, which was kind of an interesting development. So I don't know if you've got anything you want to say about that. If not, I'll just move on. But I thought that was certainly newsworthy.
Chloe and Naoko have also taken leave. Naoko assumed the role that Angela Jin had held. Angela left about a month ago. Hari Shankar has remained, and it will be interesting to see the community management of WordPress.org moving forward, having those significant leaders that have taken their leave. And my only wish is that, they've chosen what is right for them, for sure. And I'm looking forward to continuing on and contributing to WordPress with Hari as we work on the dashboards and the new contributor mentorship and get into all sorts of other good fun together. But it's got my heart feeling pretty heavy.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting that there was quite a lot of automaticians who clearly felt the need to publicly state that they hadn't left. Maybe there was some speculation and they just wanted to avoid that. And so there was quite a lot of tweets. Basically, it was just 2 words, I stayed or something like that. And so you were able to figure out on social media if the people that you were, I don't know, in relationships with or maybe working with or what have you had managed to stay. So best of luck to everybody who's made that decision. Obviously, the best will in the world. I hope that this turns out to be the right thing for you. I'm sure that it will be. Anybody else before we move on?
It seemed like a good way to work within your company with being a generous way to allow people to opt out.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay. The only thing I'd add is I think we as a community need to be careful not to, whichever side of the coin you fall on this particular issue, just to be careful not to judge the people and their decisions, because we don't know what went into their decision, and I don't like seeing that animosity when it comes to the choosing sides of things, and everybody has their own story and they got to pay their bills. So
right. That's totally it, right? I mean, I imagine that there's a proportion of the people who've stayed who maybe would have made a different decision had they not have got the constraints of the economics of life. Let's just call it that,
right.
Family and what have you.
Right.
And so I guess we can't read into the decision that you stayed as I am going to be this sort of benign figure in the future. Maybe you've stayed because you needed to more than anything else, and there may be disagreements still to come. It's an ongoing story. We'll see how it goes. Okay. All right. So back to some sort of community related type news. This is over. Oh gosh, I've clicked the wrong button there. Apologies about that. Where are we? Here we are. This one. WP Campus, which the strapline of that is where WordPress meets higher education. They are on the lookout for information from people. If you're connected in any way with WordPress and higher education, or I don't know, maybe you've just got an interest in that, you don't necessarily have to be involved. This article says, announcing WP Campus research project on the state of WordPress in higher education. And this came out just a couple of days ago, 5 days ago. WP Campus is excited to launch a large-scale research project, which they're calling the state of WordPress in higher education, in partnership with Human Made. The aims of the project are to spotlight the challenges, goals, frustrations, hopes, dreams of people working with WordPress in higher ed, to examine organization considerations, tech stacks, governance, and more. WP Campus, and I guess that should say Human Made, will share all of the findings publicly. So if this is something that you're interested in, you can click this big blue button. Links to this article in the show notes, but it's over at wpcampus.org. I have to say, I'm not in any communities which kind of where those two things collide, but obviously there is enormous interest in higher education and WordPress, and so obviously trying to figure out what that is. I'm guessing, just reading between the lines, I'm guessing that Human Made's portfolio, maybe there's an overlap there. Maybe Human Made build websites for a lot of higher ed websites. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to contribute to that, you can. Anything, or shall I press on?
Yep, just a reminder that WP Campus was also behind they did fundraising and some research on accessibility within WordPress a few years back as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Just going back to the post that we said a moment ago, Daveton says 100%, agreed, 100%. Everyone has their own story. Thank you. And here, I second Marc's view. Thank you so much. That was from Graham, who is a maker, by the way. Just saying, just You know, so I don't know what to make of this. I just genuinely, that's freaked me out. I didn't even know that was the thing, and there's like dollar amount suddenly on the thing. Wow. Right. Okay. Moving on before I stop breathing. Okay. So this is just so interesting and just snuck right under the radar. I kind of feel that if Pascal had put this piece out 3 weeks ago, everybody would have been like just totally all over it. But it's come out at this period where obviously there's a lot of noise elsewhere. So strap in. AI, everybody is talking about it, right? I don't care who you are. Even if you hate it, you're using it a bit. You know you are. You're just a tiny little bit somewhere you've used it. And obviously there's a cost to that. It requires you to connect to some third-party API like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever it might be, and you're paying for it. There'll be a cost associated with that. There'll be a bit of lag. You're propping up one company that you might not know too much about. Anyway, Pascal, who is he's a Google employee, and he works on. Is he on the performance team? Somebody help me out. I think he. Yeah, thanks, Courtney. He's nodding ahead. I think he's on the performance team. So doing great work over there. A little while ago, he introduced us to some things that you could do in the browser, which was like, I don't know, upload an image directly into a WordPress post, and it would be handled by the browser, not by some sort of upload service. Right. So it turns out that in the, what do they call it? The Canary version of Chrome, a lot of this AI is now in the browser. So it's in the browser. And if it's not in the browser that you've got, it's coming soon. These LLMs are going to be inside the browser. And so that got Pascal thinking, what can we do with that? And the answer is a lot. Now, first thing, it's not in your browser unless you're on the Canary build. It's a stripped down version, so it runs. Now, which one was it? It's something called Gemini Nano. So Google's LLM, Google's AI endeavors are called Gemini. And there's this thing called Gemini Nano, which I don't know much about, but I'm guessing it's, they've stripped it down to the bare essentials, made it smaller so it can carry out certain tasks, and presumably it can be on device. And that's the point, right? It's all happening on device in your browser. So there's a load of technicalities here. We'll just quickly scroll through it, and we'll get to the interesting bit for a WordPress podcast. If WordPress Core wants to offer AI capabilities to each and every one of its users, it can't jeopardize users' privacy by relying on expensive third-party services. I'm just going to inject a little bit of my own thoughts into there. You're still using Google's AI, right? So presumably there's a caveat there, but it's not leaving the device, I'm guessing would be Pascal's position there. So here's some of the things that you could do, right? Remember, so this is all happening in the browser. None of it's going off to ChatGPT or anything like that. So he says, well, why don't we write a post and then get the browser's AI to summarize it? So he's built a button to use this Gemini Nano to do just that. And if you're watching on the screen, you can see these little videos that he's put together. What about if you've written an article and you can't be bothered to do the SEO steps, so the meta descriptions and what have you, you can't be bothered with that. Just click a button, get it to do it. That's fine. You could summarize, bullet pointize, elaborate, shorten, or rephrase is what we've got here. And again, you can see it on the screen. We're not stuck with text, though. What about if you want to generate some images or some alternative text to go with those images? Again, it's great. You don't need to go anywhere else. It's done inside the browser. Help generate some meaningful quotes, assign tags and categories to blog posts, do sentiment analysis to see if you're on the right, if you're on the right course for comments and things like that. And all of this is happening in the browser. So this, to me, feels like that moment that I saw Playground and went, what happened? What just happened there? Because it was all done in the browser. This feels pretty transformative to me. Like, it's in the browser, that's one thing, but it's bound now inside of WordPress, and you're clicking buttons to do all the fab things that you see with things like ChatGPT. Sorry, I got really excited there and droned on far too long. But I'm hoping you're excited as well. Over to you. Nobody's excited.
I like to tinker. I like to tinker. No, I like to tinker, and this is something I'd like to tinker with.
Yeah. But does it not like one of the whole things about the AI thing is it freaks me out that all that data is going off, and you might have written the most heartfelt thing imaginable and you've sent it off to ChatGPT. I just love the fact that it's in the browser and you can ship a version of WordPress which is agnostic. You don't need that API key. It just feels pretty cool.
But on the other hand, if you write something heartfelt and it goes out to the world, isn't that what we all want anyway? So
yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, good catch there, Mark. Yeah, you've undermined that argument. Yeah, okay. Courtney, Michelle,
I got nothing.
No,
same.
Okay. Gosh, I thought that was really interesting. Okay, it's just
is.
me then. Yeah,
it really
Don't have any commentary. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
It is, but like you said, it's flown under the radar, and because of that, I don't know about the other two panelists here, but I just want to go and play with it, and until I actually dig in and play with it, it's hard for me to. I'm one of those people that I can read all I want, and until I actually have my hands on, it doesn't really impact me.
Do you know what? I think the interesting thing about this is it won't be that inspirational when you actually do play with it, because presumably the nano variant of this Google Gemini AI will not be as good as ChatGPT 4.0. But it's just the mere fact that it's in the browser is fascinating to me. So it's completely offlineable. You could be sitting in a cafe with no internet connection, writing your blog post, and it can still do a proportion of these tasks. And that just feels like a really interesting thing. And married with WordPress, if you've got the browser, in this case Chrome, you're suddenly unshackled from that. You could launch a playground version of Chrome, disconnect from the internet, and you could do all these things, and you don't need to be paying anybody. I don't know what the heuristics will be that Google managed to suck out of it on the other end. I'm sure there'll be plenty of data mining that they get. So I'm sure.
And maybe that's part of it too, is the fact that there's that whole but it's Google.
Yeah. You're right. We need a credible AI that's come out of the open source community, don't we? I'm sure it won't be too far behind. Yeah. And Patricia says the great Pascal. That's right. So anyway, go check that out. It was called, what was the piece called? It was called I'll put it on the screen. Sorry, I knocked it off. Web AI for WordPress, and it was on pascalbirchler.com. I'm a fan, Pascal. I think you're doing great work here. So keep it up. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, another thing which I failed to mention last week, because we got stuck in the weeds of the big story and we talked about it endlessly. I had this on the screen, but the tab never got raised. And this is a set of e-commerce shipping. No, not shipping. I don't know why I said shipping. Payment gateway solutions. The company that is behind it, they're called WeAreAG. So WeAreAG.co.uk. And this is /plugins. I think this came to me. I think Andrew Palmer tweeted it, and I saw it. And so it's if you're based in the UK, some of these are going to be a bit specific to the UK. But if you're not based in the UK, some of them will still work. So it's all these payment gateway solutions like Stripe, Barclaycard, Trust Payments, Lloyds, Ingenico, Barclaycard, AuthiePay, and all these other ones. You can see them here. But my understanding, the difference here is that the guy that's building these, who is called Aaron, sorry Aaron if that's not your name, we spoke last week, but in the moment I can't summon up your name. They don't take a cut, so they're not creaming off anything off the top. I don't know how much the plugins actually cost. There you go. They're relatively inexpensive, $35. Some of them a little bit more, obviously based upon the work he's done, but I just thought these were worth mentioning. So if you get these, what you're getting paid, what you're creaming off with the payment gateway, that's all the fees. Nothing is going into Aaron's back pocket, which I thought was quite nice. So there you go. All right. And an event. InstaWP announces the world's first WordPress online hackathon, which they're calling Anyone Can WP. Dates for your diary. It's going to be starting on the 11th of October. The submission deadline is the 26th. And then final judging will happen on the 10th of November. It's going to be, there's a panel of people that are going to be judging it. Keynote is going to be announced by Joost de Valk. And we've got a little bit of news about him in a minute, sort of him, tangentially. And the winner will take home $3,000. Second place gets $1,000 and $5,000 for third place. So if you want to be a part of that and show off your WordPress skills, particularly building websites, then you can register now. You've got until, what did we say? Submission deadline, 26th of October, if you want to take part. And it's being done by InstaWP, who I'm sure you've heard of by now. Okay. I'm guessing nobody's got anything to say on these bits. I'll just keep cracking on if that's all right. You might have something about this, though. If you're a plugin developer, there's a few new little things that you might like to know. Firstly, you're not going to be able to log into your .org account unless you've got 2FA switched on. So two-factor authentication, that's now going to be mandatory as of, well, now. If you can't get in, that might be the reason. You needed to have set that up by a few days ago. And the other thing to say is from now on, any plugins submitted to the plugin directory will first go through the plugin check tool, which is going to check for any, obvious errors. It obviously won't be able to spot use cases, but it's going to go through a bunch of things like PHP code sniffer, things like that to see. And the idea would be that this will automate a lot of the things which previously meant that queue was astronomical. And we have good news. If you're a plugin developer, the number of plugins that are now in the queue was 8,306. No, zero. For the first time in living memory, the team have managed to get that down. I imagine it's something to do with tools like this, but that's pretty phenomenal. I remember saying not that long ago that it was still a gigantic amount of time between submission and getting your plugin approved. So that's amazing. Is it still zero, or has it crept up to like 4 or something?
It's at 17 right now, but a bit of the plugin review team do their shifts at night. And so I would say check back when Europe gets into nighttime and see where things are. Yeah.
There we go. So 17 is tantamount to 0, basically. It was way higher than that.
Right. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, basically now, if you're a plugin developer, you're going to go to that fully expecting, like, next working week kind of return of your of the bits and pieces. And obviously, if it's failed due to the automated testing, you've got something to work on. If not, I presume you're going to be hearing really, really soon. So there's economics involved there, isn't there? If you're putting something like that in, you want it to be recognized quickly rather than the 3 months that we were at until recently. So, Patricia, I'm classifying you as an honorary maker, Patricia. Now. You're also a maker. She says, loves your enthusiasm. When you're impressed by something every time. Yeah, sorry, I get a bit carried away, don't I? And then Daveden said, it's interesting. I probably wouldn't need to use Grammarly as much. I imagine it's a bit of a Grammarly killer. Sorry, Grammarly. It does look like they're coming after you. There you go. Aaron Bowie. Thank you so much, Peacher. That's great. Oh, and there's Aaron. There you go. Thank you, Peacher. Yeah. And then Peacher, because you are, mate, she says. Anyway, there we go. So that's quite nice. Right, Michelle, it's over to you. We are very close to the end of the show. Here we go.
I know.
Navigating accessibility with role mobility.
So Underrepresented in Tech last week, we interviewed the makers of Role Mobility. It's an app that you can put in the accessibility of any place that you have visited. So as somebody who uses a mobility device, I have been able to say this place has these amenities, and I can also look and see in advance. Sometimes the restaurant will say it's accessible, but that means that you have to come in through the kitchen. So if I can see that there's actually a ramp up in front and I don't have to kind of, be lesser than because I'm entering through the back alley, so to speak, I think this is a great opportunity. And it's a free app. So I've got it on my phone. When I saw them on TikTok, I invited them to come on the podcast. And I just think anybody who has any accessibility issues will benefit from this.
That is really cool. So it gives you confidence when you get in the taxi or whatever it may be, that when you get there, you're going to have an experience which is, desirable, like you said.
Yes.
You don't want to be rolling in through the kitchen, what have you. So, underrepresentedintech.com. I'm guessing if we go to all episodes on the podcast, it will appear
it'll
there.
Be there.
There you go. Yeah. So underrepresentedintech.com, you can find out all about role accessibility. Right. Just the other few quick bits and pieces. I've got this thing from X here. Oh, interesting. So Taco, who is often on this show, he's leaving Yoast.
He is.
But he's not leaving Yoast. He's leaving Yoast, but he's going to work for Yoast. Work that out.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's all about the spelling.
It's all about the spelling. So he's leaving YOAST, the company that he's been working with for many years. And when he's been sat on this show, you've always seen his the Yoast logo, the company. And and he's going to go and work for Yoast, the person
and Marika,
and Marika, who founded Amelia Capital and no doubt other things. I'll just read it out because it's nice. It says, "I'm leaving Yoast." This is his ex tweet, whatever. "There are thousands of things I want to add. How absolutely epic my journey over the past 11 years has been, how much I've learned here, how much I'm going to miss my colleagues at Yoast, how much I appreciate all the opportunities Yoast has given me to travel the world, learn new things, meet new people, how strong my connection to the Yoast brand still is, how great the adventure with Newfold Digital has been, how much I love that Yoast introduced me to the WordPress community, just to name a few." And it goes on. But that's really bravo, mate. Congratulations. It goes without saying. We wish you the best. I'm sure you're leaving a giant taco-shaped hole in the company behind you. That's got to be the name of this show. There's no way that's not it. Taco-shaped hole. I'm just writing that down. Sorry. But bravo. You'll be missed, I'm sure, but also you'll be warmly received where you're going. So that's lovely. Anybody want to throw anything towards that before we move on?
Best wishes to him. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. WordPress Accessibility Day. What a phenomenal job.
It's coming up this Wednesday.
Man alive, you are killing it on the socials. Just my social feed is full of this, so it's getting spread beautifully. Yeah. So it's coming up Wednesday, the 9th of October. It's a 24-hour event. It's at 2024.wpaccessibility.day. We've plugged it a whole bunch of times, but if you still haven't got the memo, go to that website, sign up, and you can attend.
It's run through Zoom, so you do have to register to be able to attend.
Yep.
And then you'll also have access to all of the videos afterwards, so you can replay them.
Okay, so if you're in the accessibility space or you're just curious about what you can do, then
accessibility is everybody's issue, so it applies to everybody.
Nicely done, Michelle. You turned that around. Yeah, my faux pas there. Have we got anything else on here? What is this one? I've got these.
There was one about Core Dev Days.
That's it. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, great. Okay. Over to you.
Schedule's been announced. This is an official WordPress event along the lines of a next-gen camp. So the schedule is posted, and if you go to the main page, there's like a link to, or even here, there's a link to go buy the tickets. So we could see who are the speakers coming up at this. This looks really interesting. I think it's going to be heavily on the dev side of it. Just looking over the schedule that's here, Miriam's speaking about scaling the WordPress release process. Miriam Schwab from Elementor. Carlos Bravo, new public APIs for block bindings. There's a Barcamp track, which WordCamps kind of sprung out of. Barcamps have been around a long time. They're just general unconference tech events. So there's a couple blocks for that in the schedule. It looks really interesting. There's 2 days of different tracks going on. And it looks like a spot that those that are really active in contributing to core might be interested in, as well as those that want to become more active in the developer side of this. So check out, it's on events.wordpress.org/Rome, and you'll find lots more information about it there. November 8 and 9.
Yeah. So it's coming up. Well, tomorrow it begins. So we just showed the schedule there. I'll link to it in the show notes.
November. A month from tomorrow.
Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, quite right. Thank you.
You have time to buy your plane tickets yet.
Yes, because it is being held in Rome, and the venue location was just here. The Hub Zest. A great name for a location. I like that. And we did that, and there's nothing to say about that one. So that's it. I think we've cracked it. We've nailed it, and we managed to get through it without throwing any mud at anybody. So bravo, team. Good job. Unless anybody's got anything else to say, I will just thank all of my panelists. We've got the co-host, Michelle Frechette, and we've got our two wonderful contributors to today. We've got Courtney and Marc. I'm just going to say Marc because I'm never going to get it right twice. No, I am.
You got it. You got it right.
Benzakein. And I had to say that word in my head again.
That's okay. That's okay, Nathan. Wiggly. I don't have a problem.
Yeah. Whoa, nice. Yeah, I love it.
That's good.
Just throw it right back. That's perfect. Oh, lovely. So that's it. Thank you so much. And thank you to the two makers, Nomad Skateboarding. And who else was it who joined me? And Graham Tucker. I have no idea what just happened. That was so cool. So we're just going to do the wave, which we always do at the end of an episode. If it's all right with you three, shall we raise our hands and give us a smile? That's perfect. And thank you for joining us and making the comments happen. And really appreciate it. We'll be back next week for another episode of This Week in WordPress. Do we want to see the cat and dog and other video, or do we want the usual? Yeah, we want. Okay, panelists, I'll be back in it's about a minute and a half. I'll be back when it's done, but here it comes. If you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling unsure about the future, if anything is making you feel not calm, here comes an unadulterated 90 seconds of cats, dogs and sheep. We'll see you next week. Take it easy. Bye-bye.